Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2, and today I am super excited to show you guys a nearly perfect dark magic build that has been in the making for a very long time and is one of the strongest builds in the entire game. As you can see, the build not only absolutely just decimates raid bosses, but it's also going to clear chaos chambers faster than any other character in the entire game. But what's also really nice is you can one-shot bosses with spells and also spam spells a ton with a super low cooldown. You can use pretty much whatever you want and do crazy things with this build. Overall, it's a ton of fun to use. There's a lot of different ways to set it up based on preference, and I'm going to make sure to go over everything within the video. Just keep in mind that this video is meant to demonstrate how much damage this build can do with near perfect gear. The build is still incredibly strong without perfect gear, but that is the purpose of the video, is to show you guys what you can do pretty much when you are fully set up. If you guys want a more introductory build, I have plenty of those posted on my channel, but if you follow the core fundamentals of this build, you'll still do crazy damage without having like absolutely perfect gear. Of course though, there will also be a save file for this build posted in my Discord if you're interested in downloading it. There'll also be some extra gameplay of a super fast cast 20 at the end of the video, so feel free to stick around for that. Alright, so getting into the build, if you guys like the video, please make sure to drop a like, helps me out a ton. Also, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. There's like a lot of you guys that aren't subbed, so feel free to. For you guys that are subbed, See, how are you going to pass up a subscription? You get a kiss, man. Unbelievable. Alright, getting into the hero stats. People always ask, does it matter what backstory I pick? No, it doesn't matter. I have Village Idiot, slightly more crit damage, insignificant. How do I have so many points? It's because of my myth rank. You guys want to see my myth rank? It's pretty low. I intentionally don't put points in because I don't want it to be super high to inflate the damage. In terms of what you want to spec into, full crit damage, full crit chance. If you're not using spells as much, you can decide to swap some of the crit chance into more skill cooldown or more spell cooldown. I have the rest of my points put into spell cooldown so that I can have higher uptime on whatever spell that I'm using, namely the Buffmeister. In terms of the core functionality of this build, basically what we're doing is we are using a pixie weapon. I've made a separate video on this, so if you want to know in detail about this, feel free to watch the video. Basically, you want a Fear Not pixie weapon because these are going to scale off of both spell damage and companion damage, which is going to enable us to take advantage of a whole bunch of extra damage, but it's also going to work with the Graveborn Harvest, which we'll talk about in a minute here. This is essentially going to enable us to stack a whole bunch of dark magic damage, pair that with a class item that's going to make all companion damage dark magic damage, and make the enemy take more dark magic damage. And then since we're playing Graveborn, we get a whole bunch of dark magic damage, plus we get this access to this enchant, which is 50% more dark magic damage. We're dark magicking out of our minds, dude. And the pixies just end up doing a completely insane amount of damage. But if you stack more spell damage, you can make your spells do really, really good at the same time, because more spell damage is then going to increase how much damage our pixies do, which is the main reason that we are playing Spellshot here. Any increases to gun damage are not going to increase our pixie damage. We only care about companion and spell damage. In terms of the skill tree, so first I want to talk about Harvest because this is pretty important. So the way that this is supposed to function is that after you get a kill, you gain an additional 18% bonus dark magic damage for your companion. So let's say my companion does 100 damage, I get a kill, now it's going to do an extra 18 damage of just bonus dark magic. For one, by default, even when this isn't bugged, that 18 number is actually higher than 18, not only because we're getting so much extra bonus dark magic damage and it seems to double dip into that, but on top of that, it by default just seems to be stronger than it is. I don't really know what it scales off of. If you have a completely empty slate, it's going to do that 18, but the more spell damage that you get, the more that you fill out the tree, the more dark magic damage, that 18 is going to go up to 100 or 200. What's even crazier is that there is a bug that happens, which I go out of my way to not take advantage of in this build, but there's a bug that exists with Harvest where when you enter a portal while Harvest is active, it is going to continue to stack up. So then the next time that you get Harvest, rather than it being a 18% damage increase, it's like a 36% damage increase, and then that continues to scale. So if you play 2 Chaos Chambers back to back, your second Chaos Chamber, you'll be doing double damage than you did the first one. In all the gameplay that I have, I manually quit every single time before every run, before every boss kill, so that there is no Harvest stacking at all. And the damage by itself is insane without Harvest stacked, okay? Some of you are like, why don't you just take the skill off then if you don't want it to be bugged? Like I mentioned earlier, this scales crazily just by default without it being bugged at all. Taking this off would be like taking off half of the damage of the build, and it's one of the main core functionalities of the setup. So there's not really much that I can do about it. The thing is though, is that the bug happens inadvertently. If you're just playing, it'll just happen. So I wouldn't really call it bug abuse because you're just using a skill point in the game and you're just playing. And the damage by itself is so good that it doesn't really matter that this happens, and it just gets crazier. But I mean, you go from killing a raid boss in 4 seconds to 3 seconds. Like, you know, who really cares? You just see some really big numbers. For the rest of the skill tree, we're going Spell Shot for the additional spell damage, which is then going to increase the damage of our pixie. And this is also going to enable us to get high thread count, so we get even more spell damage. In terms of what we're speccing into, spell crit, I don't believe works for pixies, but I think it certainly does work for your spells, obviously. So if you're using a spell, that's going to be really good. Then I have some points into magic bullets here. You certainly don't need this, but I use some other weapons just for fun every once in a while, so it's nice to have the extra damage there, and there's not other things that you care all that much about. Got some reload speed here because we're using Fury weapons that are going to, you know, having reload speed is really nice for that. A little bit of action skill cooldown rate. And then we have Glass Cannon for the additional spell damage. We're pairing this with a Cursed Wit. If you want more survivability, take off Glass Cannon and put on Mage Armor. You do not need all the extra damage. The damage is crazy good. I'm always going to err on the side of getting as much damage as possible, but if you want survivability, just take off Glass Cannon and put on Mage Armor and you're fine. And we have high thread count. The other things don't matter too much because we want to get full into this tree. Faithful Thralls does not work with the pixies, unfortunately, but it does work with hydras. We're going to have a hydra weapon to throw them down. Those are also going to benefit from harvest and also do a whole bunch of damage. But on top of that, it's just going to buff our pixies, which is our main damage dealer. But also, if you're running around using spells a lot, you could just main the hydra weapon and then just use your spells, and that'll increase the damage. Hopefully, the pixies end up getting bug fixed to where, you know, they actually work with Faithful Thralls. Then we have a little bit of spell cooldown, flat dark magic damage, harvest, of course. The Dark Hydra on kill skill is really nice because whenever we pop our spell, we're going to get a Morheim's Blessing, which has a chance to proc our kill skills. This is a 60% chance. The main reason I have this isn't these aren't going to do very much damage. It's mainly just to get the additional Faithful Thrall stack just every once in a while. And if you're using a spell that has a lot of charges, you'll proc this very often. If you don't want to spec this, another option would be Stain of the Soul. Stain of the Soul, you'd be wondering, you know, it does a whole bunch of extra bonus dark magic damage. It seems to be on its own little thing and not do a whole bunch. I could be wrong on that, but it's not entirely necessary. And then we have Ascension here for extra spell damage. We have Lord of Edges and Blast Gasp. Blast Gasp is mandatory if you're using spells and you're trying to get those to hit for very hard. But if you're not using spells a ton, then you don't really need it for the pixies because it doesn't scale too well with the pixies for some reason, but it's still extra damage, so you certainly want to spec into it, I would think. And then Morheim's Blessing, of course. That's pretty much it for the skill tree. Fortunately, the icons won't load. For the weapons, like I mentioned earlier, you want a Fear Knot that is going to transform into a pixie and also have the target takes increased damage. This is going to make it scale off of both spell and companion damage. You can also get a Hydra, which is going to work for Faithful Thralls and also just does pretty good damage. I don't have an enchant on mine, unfortunately. Which element these are doesn't really matter because we're using a class item that's going to convert all of our damage into dark magic damage. You can also get a shotgun called the Bloodshot that is going to also transform into a pixie, and that's pretty good, but I certainly prefer the pistol crossbow. Let's talk about spells real quick. So I'm using a Buffmeister like always. This is going to give us a lot of survivability, but also just increases the damage of our pixies by default. But that's just mainly because I wanted to kill raid bosses really fast, and this is what's going to enable you to clear chaos chambers faster. But if you want to use something like a Sunder for just, you know, doing a lot of AoE and it's a lot of fun to use, or you want to use a Magic Barrage to be able to one-shot bosses, hit them for like 3 million, that's certainly a good option. Or if there's any other dark magic spell that you like using, feel free to use whatever you want. On the Buffmeister, you want to have Zap and Ka-Chow. This is just going to increase spell damage and ability damage, so that's going to buff our pixies a fairly good bit, and that's going to enable us to kill the bosses really quickly, but like I mentioned, you don't entirely need that. For our for our necklace, you want dark magic damage and spell shot power. Spell shot power is going to increase how much spell damage you get per spell weaving stack. And then all damage dealt. This thing is literally perfect. And then whenever you get a kill, your companion gains increased damage, which is going to work for with our pixie, so it's going to make our pixie do even more damage. There's another one you could get that whenever you cast a spell, reduce your action skill cooldown, and then when your action skill is on cooldown, spell damage is increased. This is just going to make your spells do more damage, but also make your pixies do more damage. But if you're trying to get a full spell damage build, try to hit as hard as you can, this is what you'd want to put on there. For our shield, I'm just using a Cursed Wit like always, just to get the extra 100% increased damage, but if you're worried about survivability, you could very easily use a Body Rune that whenever you kill an enemy, restore some of your health and do bonus fire damage. This is particularly good, or you could just get one that increases your maximum health and increases your companion damage. All those are fairly decent. I'd probably go for the normal Body Rune because the heal on kill is pretty good if you're worried about survivability, and then like I said, you could take Glass Cannon off and put Mage Armor on. For our rings, there's kind of two options here. You want some form of a mix of spell damage and companion damage. Of course, if your goal is to one-shot enemies with spells, then you'd want spell damage, spell crit, spell crit damage, that would be ideal. Probably full spell crit damage, and then that's also going to scale how much damage your blast cast is going to do, which is really good. This is probably the best ring that I've gotten in this game. Took a very long time to get this, but if you want, you could go for companion damage instead of the spell damage if you wanted to fully maximize the pixie damage, and then the companion crit and the companion crit damage is very, very good here. But of course you could go full spell or full companion, kind of up to you, whatever setup you're doing. For the class item, there's a few different options here. I believe the best one is the one that we have here. This is also really good. Instead of area damage, I would prefer companion damage, but the area damage, spell damage, and all damage gel is what is going to be the best for spells. If you don't want to use your pixies and you want your spells to do more damage, you could get one that when you're standing still increases your dark magic damage by 50%. That's going to be really good for spells, but we're using this for our companions to do spell damage because a dark magic companion pixie is like almost impossible to get, so I don't really even know if that exists, to be honest. So that's why we're using this class item. You want it to give you high thread count for the additional spell damage with the spell weaving stack. Alternatively, I don't seem to have one on me. You could get a Graveborn one that's going to increase your Blast Gasp, or you could get a Graveborn one that increases Ascension, which is fairly good, but I believe that this is going to be overall best, but Ascension is very, very strong for the extra spell damage there, and Blast Gasp will increase how much damage your spells can put out. I'll probably make a build that's all spells and just trying to scale the spell damage as high as possible with Blast Gasp. If you don't want all companion damage converted, you could get an amalgam that just has a whole bunch of stats on it, but ultimately this is what's going to end up being the best, I believe. For the enchants, this is fairly important. You want 50% increased dark magic damage. This is going to work all the time because it lasts 60 seconds with Dire Sacrifice. Whenever they patch the on-action skill active enchants to only work, while it's actually active, you just swap to Reaper of Bones, and this will give you a ton of survivability and extra dark magic damage all the time. And then you could just get the 50% increase to companion damage. But if you want your spells to do more damage, you could get the on-action skill start increase spell damage by 40%, and then you could replace the companion one with on-action skill start increase damage dealt by 20% flat for 20 seconds. And then for the last enchant, you want when a Graveborn action skill is activated, gain 50% increased dark magic damage. So we have 50% dark magic damage, 50% companion damage, 40% spell damage, and 50% dark magic damage, and the spell damage could very easily be swapped out to the 20% on action skill start. Those are very good options. Now I'm just going to show you guys some gameplay. Alright, so I'm quitting out into the main menu and then going back in just so you know that there's no harvest stacking going on here. If you guys want to see gameplay of me killing the raid bosses, I'll put that at the end of this Chaos Chamber run here. In this run, I'm just going to try to clear it as fast as humanly possible. As such, we're going to be using the Buffmeister because ultimately scaling our pixies and making ourselves run faster is what's going to be best for clearing really quickly. So, I'm going to be doing that, but of course, you can use spells and still do very, very well. We're just trying to clear it super quick. I really like using this Dagger Storm thing just for fun. It's nice for blowing up the quartzes. But whenever you swap weapons, you are going to lose your enchant, so something to keep in mind. But I like using that thing. But as you can see, we're already doing 100k per pixie shot here, which is really good. And we didn't even have our spell weaving stacks all the way up, so already cleared that super quick. I'm just going to try to do this as fast as possible. I'm not going to make anything elite, but you could very easily make things elite and have absolutely no problem whatsoever, because the build damage is insane. And what's also really nice is if you're using a dark magic Buffmeister, you get the healing from that, right? So your survivability actually ends up being not all that bad. You certainly do have the potential to randomly get one-shotted, but that's kind of just every build in this game. My suspicion is that Cryo Buffmeister would do more damage, but I'm not 100% certain. And having the dark magic one is good anyway for the survivability, but also just because we have so much dark magic damage in the build. But as you can see, I barely have to play. And the more floors that we do, the more damage that we'll end up doing, getting our buffs and everything. And Harvest just doing its thing. But yeah, the damage already over 100k per pixie hit is kind of insane. Alrighty. I've done the featured run so many times, I'm kind of excited for it to swap. I do like the floors other than the Mimic floor. I don't really like that one. Come on, Pixie, shoot at him. It took a second there. I like pretty much all the floors except the Mimic one, and I like that the boss is what's his face? Parasite, but I don't know, I've just done it so many times at this point, trying to get gameplay for all the different builds. Counter clear. I am out of ammo. That is not a good situation. Hopefully I can pick some up. This is like the best floor to get gameplay for, so I would hope that I could get some ammo. Yeah, ammo can be a problem when you're just spamming them as much as I am. You certainly don't need to have the weapon out as much, or sorry, you don't need to spam as many pixies. Look how fast we did that floor, dude. You don't need to spam the pixies as much as I do, because you can only have a few of them out at any given time, but I just want to do the map as fast as possible, right? So I want to get the pixies out right where I'm fighting. Sorry, true story, I was just brushing my teeth and I had a bottle of benzoyl peroxide face wash right next to my toothbrush and next to my toothpaste, and it looks very similar, and I started brushing my teeth with benzoyl peroxide, and I have not felt very good ever since then. So I'm a little slow right now, so my bad for that. But as you can see, we're clearing like super quickly here. It's kind of ridiculous. I plan on making a Clawbringer build, and I also have another build that I can do like explosions with and make the pixie do like 3 million damage if you get really lucky. If you guys would be interested in seeing that, let me know, or comment down below any other build that you're particularly interested in seeing. If you want a more melee focused build, if you want, you know, a spell damage build, whatever else. If there's a certain character that you want to build with. There's about 3 that I'm thinking about: a Clawbringer one, a Blast Chill one, and then potentially that Spore Warden one that you can explode and do millions of damage with. But I'm not entirely set on which one I want to do. I really don't like this floor, to be honest. That floor is particularly boring. But we're already, you know, almost done. We got one more floor to do. And then we got the boss fight. And the boss fight, dude, killing Parasite's actually hilarious. He just gets completely owned. Really funny. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It was really funny. I made the video talking about pixies, and that I think they're probably the best gun in the game if they are set up properly. And everybody's like, "Oh, nah, dude, you're only doing damage because of you had Faithful Thralls stacked up." And I wonder what those people think now, because I'm pretty sure this is the best thing. We're already at the boss floor, and I'm just gonna fly right in there, dude. I'm not even throwing down Hydras. If I wanted to make this more optimal, I would throw down Hydras to get my Faithful Thrall stacks up, but I mean, we don't even need to do that, dude. We're just gonna throw out 3 pixies, pop our Dark Sack, and he's dead. He's literally just dead, man. It's insane. Alright, let's see. Is this actually #1 run in the world, dude? #1 run? Let's see. What did we get? Oh my gosh. 456. I mean, that's pretty good. I think it could be faster. Honestly, but that's still pretty good. Now I'm going to show you guys some gameplay of the raid bosses, but thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, please. Thank you very much. Here's a quick little teaser for the Deadshot build. This gameplay is not on stream, so no camera, sorry. Gameplay, as you can see, is on intense. I've tried my best to make sure there's no harvest stacking going on. If you don't know about harvest stacking, I have videos on it. But basically, the longer that you play, the more damage that you will end up doing with the skill harvest if you have it on your character. I intentionally, while playing this character, quit after every single Chaos Chamber as to not inflate the numbers. So this is what it would look like naturally just playing the game without, you know, doing any additional runs. The crazy part is that the damage would actually be even higher if you continue to do runs back to back to back, because harvest would stack, even if you didn't want it to. But this is just within one run, which I'll of course demonstrate in a video. And yeah, the damage is a little crazy. It's a little good. It's just slightly good, you know, not too good. The build could certainly actually be set up a bit better, but this is what we got going for us right now. This guy's far away. Come here, sir. Boom. Oh my god. Oh my god. He actually got owned. That's the best that I've done on that guy with this build. That's insane. That is insane. Not sure when I want to come out with this video, because I don't know how many people want to see it. So if you actually want to see this build, please drop a like so I know that you actually want to see it. Thank you very much. Dude, 500k per? I could not imagine how much you would do with Harvest stacked. You could easily do like millions if you just stacked Harvest a little bit. What's funny is a lot of people kept saying, oh, your Pixie only does good damage because you have Faithful Thrall stacks. Well, look at my Faithful Thrall stacks now, loser. I got no stacks, dude. I got none. I got none, man. Dude. Actually clapped. Actually clapped.